Let's bring in Joey Jones, former Marine Corps bomb technician and a Fox News contributor, and Colonel Scott Caine, former vice commander of the 9th Air Force and a former fighter pilot as well. Colonel Caine, your thoughts on that aerial flyover? Spectacular images that we just got to see.
Well, certainly as an aviator that flew for most of 30 years, I sure enjoyed watching all those great airplanes fly. I wished I was young enough to jump back in one and pilot one across the skies like they did. But what really struck me as I think back on my 30 years in the Air Force, having served all over the world, is when the president talked about how our Declaration of Independence created this nation as a free nation. What struck me was that our Independence Day really marks Independence Day for the rest of the world, because we've been the leader across the planet that has brought freedom and liberty to all the other nations that have adopted similar forms of government. And so, as I traveled the world, I saw great people that looked up to the United States of America. They looked up to obviously our air power. They looked up to us as leaders, and the president highlighted how the founding fathers set up a system of government that is the leader across the world and promotes liberty to everybody. And that's what I think about today on Independence Day.
I know that you were an A-10 Warthog pilot in the Air Force, and they didn't feature any A-10s in this flyover today. Are you writing a letter of complaint?
Well, just because they didn't, they talked about the bullet, so that's the bullet from the A-10. Just wanted the audience to see something from the A-10.
Yeah, that is an amazing aircraft, and very much loved by the ground troops, like Johnny Joey Jones. Johnny, you know, we've seen over the last month or two these violent protests, these attempts, and in some cases successful operations to tear down statues in this country. The president seemed to fire right back with an executive order that he issued yesterday. I want you to hear him talk about it, and then I'll get your reaction. Here's the president.
Yesterday, I signed an executive order to create a brand new monument to our most beloved icons. The National Garden of American Heroes will be a vast outdoor park that will feature the statues of the greatest Americans who have ever lived. We will honor extraordinary citizens from every community and from every place and from every part of our nation.
So, Johnny, the president, you know, the critics have been trying to tear down, and in some cases succeeding at tearing down some of the statues of notable Americans. The president says we're going to put up a sculpture garden, a garden of national heroes, featuring people like soldiers like George Washington and George Patton, but also, you know, Harriet Tubman, Benjamin Franklin, just any great American from the history books. Your thoughts when you heard that announcement from the president?
I think this is absolutely brilliant. You know, I've said on this channel a few times now, you don't build tomorrow by going back and tearing down yesterday. What's done is done, and we've memorialized some of it to not forget it. But the idea that we can go and build new things together, and if you felt left out on some of those monuments that are in D.C. now, the idea that you can be a part of what we build in the future, that's what this country is all about. It's not that we get up every day and get it right, it's that we get up every day and we try to get it right, and we try to make tomorrow better for my kids and their kids and your kids. And that's exactly the signal that President Trump is sending with this, and I think it's a brilliant move. And I would challenge all of those people, if you're spoiled brats or anarchists or honest brokers that have wanted to tear down monuments, I challenge you to be a part of this conversation and to help us build tomorrow and build the monuments for people that deserve to be memorialized for what they've contributed. And on the topic of that A-10, that's a favorite of mine as well. As an EOD tech, I had to learn how to take it apart to get to those munitions. So the GAL was an impressive gun, and that's an impressive plane.
Yeah, the Warthog is a thing of beauty, that's for sure. The president touched on a little bit of everything in this speech, you know, from the anarchists and the rioters. He denounced the Antifa members and the left-wing mob who have been causing so much trouble in this country. He also, you know, touched on the coronavirus efforts and and those who want to tear down memorials in this country. It was a wide-ranging speech, but Colonel, he also talked about getting Americans to set foot on Mars, and he promised that Americans are going to be the ones to do it. It's an interesting goal, and some people shake their heads and say, well, we'll never make that, but a lot of people said the same thing when John Kennedy said we're going to go to the moon.
Well, absolutely. I believe in the American spirit, the ingenuity of Americans, and that's what sets us apart. I would say it sets us apart from the totalitarian kind of countries, the socialist kind of countries that don't have a population of people trying to always succeed in finding solutions to things. So I think that the president is right. The spirit of Americans is that we're gonna solve that problem. We're gonna get there, and I wouldn't be surprised if somebody's sitting on Mars in 50 years.
It's going to be an exciting 50 years, and it was an exciting night to watch. Colonel Scott Caine and Joey Jones, thank you both for being with us for this salute to America that the White House just put on.